The 9.1 update brings us a brand new Amx 50B because now it's equipped with a fourth shell and of course it's changing the whole playstyle of the tank. And most of you thought that the T57 Heavy was gonna get the exact same buff, meaning that both tanks would be quite equal like it was the case before the 9.1 update. But it was not the case, and right now we have two different playstyles. And I know that it can be confusing for some people to know which one of those tanks they're gonna like the most. This is why today we're gonna take a look at both in order for you to understand the playstyle of both to be able to pick the right one for you. First, let's take a minute to know the difference between the T57 Heavy and the Amx 50B. And it's gonna be quite simple. The first difference is the gun. As I just mentioned, 4 shells in the magazine for the Amx 50B, which means an increased reload time of 24 seconds and 3 seconds of reload between shells. Whereas on the T57 Heavy, your gun has only 3 shells in the magazine, but 2.5 seconds between shell and a total magazine reload time of only 18 seconds. So on the gun, it seems like the T57 Heavy, even if it has one less shell, is definitely more reactive and more aggressive. Now on the mobility, the Amx 50B is definitely the most mobile because you can go to 50 kilometers per hour with it, whereas with the T57 Heavy, it's only 35. So on this point, the Amx 50B is more mobile than the T57. Finally, on the armor profile, the T57 Heavy is definitely better than the Amx 50B because definitely it's easier with a Amx 50B to penetrate an Amx 50B than T57 Heavy to penetrate a T57 Heavy, even if they share quite a common upper part of the hull because both of them are nearly invincible. Now we're gonna take a look at 2 replays, one with the 50B, one with the T57, and I'm gonna explain everything you need to know about both tanks to be able to pick one. So the Amx 50B, 4 shells in the magazine, a great mobility and no armor. With those statistics, I think that you already know what you're supposed to do. You are now a support tank, and even more with the 4th shell. Because here you need to either spot for your teammates and after try to unleash your clip like we're doing on that Wagon, or try maybe to play in support with the rest of the heavies. But at no cost are you the one that will have to push forward and be the one that gets pushed by your opponents. You're not an E100, you're not a T57 Heavy, and you're not sustainable for this kind of playstyle. What you want to do is play carefully. Currently, in my opinion, the Amx 50B is the one that requires the most experience out of both the T57 and the Amx 50. But at the same time, it's quite fun to be able to deal such kind of damage because currently now I think you can inflict nearly 1.6k damage within one clip. And it shows because people are scared of you. Just take a look at that Yo, for example. The guy just rushed as fast as possible to avoid getting snapped by my shells. But what are we doing currently? You see that, or you may think that I'm totally alone, even if it's not the case, because behind me I have the support of a tank destroyer, and I know that the heavy on top of the hill, if you take a look at the map on the the right corner, is definitely helpful. So what are we doing? We are playing as a support. We're sneaking our shells, even if in the process we're gonna take a couple of shells ourselves. And as soon as we're done, we pull back to a safe position from which our allies will be able to help us. So in definitive, the playstyle associated with the 50B is all about playing with time. You wait for your whole reload to be complete, you sneak your shell from a position from which you pray for people not to try to attack you aggressively or anything, and when you're done, you go back to a safe cover. And this is exactly what we're doing right now. Even if you take one shot in the process, I'm literally inflicting 1.6k damage on that guy for only taking 400 damage. It's a good trade, and it's a trade that is definitely worth it. But at the same time, you do not want to push too far. You don't push too far alone, because otherwise you get pushed by those kind of tanks like the M5 Yo. And here is probably my mistake into this game, pushing aggressively like that without realizing that the Yo would be capable of shooting and pushing me like this. But it's not a problem, because after all, I got the support of my teammates, and most of them totally obliterated that guy. So what do you see about this playstyle? You see that I did not try to play aggressively. Even if I went on my own to the middle, it was solely just to be able to spot. And by spotting, I had the support of my team, and I had the possibility of unleashing as many shells as I could possibly do. So what does it tell you about the playstyle is that you're not a tank that is here to unleash its clip aggressively, because you're not, it's impossible with 3 seconds of reload between shells to do this. But at least you see that this tank is now more of a support than anything else. Not a single time in this game did I take a dangerous bet by trying to push forward to initiate combat or anything like that. The only thing I tried was to sink my 4 shells on the guy and trading 400 damage from the VK for 1.6k damage from myself to be able to do the job and therefore to do my damage. And it worked, because in the end we managed to get nearly 5.5k damage. Now let's take a look at the T57 Heavy. Here we only have 3 shells in the magazine, but we have a clip that reloads faster, and on top of that we have more armor and less mobility. What does it tell us about the tank? That this one is able to play a little bit more aggressively, because you will not get punished for the mistakes you do. On top of that, having 18 seconds of reload instead of the 24 seconds we do have on the Amx 50B makes it more relevant and more aggressively playable, because the Amx 50B, once it's reloading, is extremely weak to opponents. 24 seconds of reload, can you imagine? If you take a T95 V6 in front of you, the guy will be able to pull out 3 shells on you, even 4, before you reload, which means that you would totally get snapped out of existence. So what are we going to do with the T57? You see that currently I'm taking a position I would never take with an Amx 50B, because of course I'm not here to do these kind of things. But with the T57 you can. The goal here is to find a position from which, even if we're alone, we have the possibility of snapping our shells. On top of that, having 2.5 seconds of reload between shells offers us a great flexibility when it comes to snapping shells. For example, on the T22 Medium, even if we took a couple of shells, I still managed to get 1.2k damage out of him. And of course, it forces him to pull back, and maybe that he will be trying to get back to the rest of his team. And on top of that, we're bouncing his shells. So the goal with the T57 Heavy, and in my opinion this is what makes it more fun currently than the Amx 50B, is to find a position from which you can play aggressively and take some shots from time to time, while at the same time being the one that is able to snap and burst the enemies. Because of course, when you have 3 shells and only 2.5 seconds between shells, which means a total burst of 1.2k damage for only 5 seconds of reload, you are going to be able to do a lot of things. You see, the difference of playstyle between the Amx 50B and the T57 Heavy is quite subtle. With the T57 Heavy, I'm playing aggressively, but not to the point where I'm gonna face 2 or 3 tanks at the same time. I'm playing aggressively, but from positions from which the opponents will have to choose between shooting me and shooting the other teammates. And if they do the choice of shooting my teammates, I do have the possibility of coming across and snapping my shells. And this is what you are seeking with the T57 Heavy. That little subtlety between both tanks is here. With the 50B, you try to play from long distance or make sure not to be the one that will get shot. With the T57 Heavy, you just make sure that if you are the one getting shot, at least you are the one that deals most damage. And of course, for the moment, it works well. Even if, yeah, we took a couple of shells from the E100 and the tortoise, it's not necessarily a problem because at the same time, we reload fast, we have the support of our teammate, and I just used my hit points here to bait them. And we're gonna bait once again that 704 into shooting my track or shooting whatever, something, to make sure that this guy gets snapped. And oh boy, is it going to work. There we go for the first shell, second shell, and third shell, just for the sake of it. Bye-bye, 704. Thanks for the hit points. And now we're going to go once again on the 100 and the Type 68, even if I think that the Type 68 is not going to be the one we're going to kill right now, focusing on the E100. The cool thing here is that we had the possibility of killing the 100 just because we had the reload time. Of course, with the 50B, we will not be able to do such a thing. And now we're not going to bother. We are going to advance because, of course, the guy is going to die before we made it to him. So in definitive, what was the difference of playstyle between the Amx 50B and the T57? Because that's the conclusion we need to get to. The T57 Heavy currently is the one you have to play aggressively. It's the one with which you're going to have the most fun, but it's also the one that is more for newbies than the 50B. Because the 50B in its current state is something that will have to be played in support and support only. You can't allow yourself anymore to do some hit and run, like playing aggressively, and once you have your 3 shells that needs to be reloaded, you pull back. You need to play only in support, play second line. So it can be divided in two things. Either you go to the medium side, you support your mediums from a little bit of a distance, or you do the same but from the heavy side. The choice is yours. Whereas when we take a look at the T57 Heavy, this one is definitely more aggressive. It's easier to play, in my opinion, and it's definitely the better choice if your goal is to be at first line. But keep in mind that even if you're at first line, you're not as armored as an E100 or a mouse or any regular tier 10 heavy, which means that you will still have to play in support, but less than the 50B. And this is what is subtle about the difference between both tanks. Both are here in support, but there is one that supports more, which is the 50B, than the other, which is the T57 Heavy. So hopefully you enjoyed, guys. I hope that it will help you. If it's not clear enough, just tell me in the comments and it will be my pleasure to answer you. And hopefully I'm gonna see you soon for a new video. Bye.